Hey everybody, what's up? I'm Aaron. This is Question Period Canada. In this video, we're bringing you a battle royale that took place earlier in the week at the House of Parliament. JAGMEET Singh, Pierre-Poilievre, Justin Trudeau. It's a three-way. Really, it's between Poilievre and Trudeau takes a whooping. Let's get into the video. To start off, it's Pierre and Justin. Let's go.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister is not worth the cost or the division after 8 years. Panicking under pressure from MPs in a region where he's plummeting in the polls, he'd paused the tax for some people in some places, but his minister said that other people should have voted Liberal if they wanted the same break. Now the panicking Prime Minister is further dividing the country with the confirmation from his Environment Minister that he's now in a coalition with the Bloc, the Separatist Party. So we have a costly carbon tax coalition that includes the Separatists. What did he promise the Separatists to get them to sign on to keeping him in power for 2 more years?
Le très honorable Premier Ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Only division in this country as to whether or not we should be doing everything we can to fight climate change is within the Conservative Party. The Canadians are unequivocal that we need to fight climate change and we need to support Canadians through that. That's why our price on pollution returns hundreds of dollars every 3 months to the average family of 4 while fighting climate change and watching our curve bend faster over the past 2 years than the other G7 countries. We will continue to hold Canadians together as we fight climate change while Conservatives continue to bring us backwards.
Hear, hear.
Maybe I built up the episode to be too much. That's just how it's starting. If you listen to Pierre's question, there's 15 or 20 barbs in there. Like it's all one big insult, but barbs on the insult. It's in it. You can go back and look. There are so many barbs. Do you understand what I mean? It elevates from here. It escalates.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's own Environment Commissioner confirmed he will not hit his own targets, and the Prime Minister has admitted that his carbon tax is not worth the cost for oil-heated homes. Now, he did that to save his political hide, but his desperation went one step further this week when he relied on the Separatists to vote with him to quadruple the tax on home heating for everyone else in Canada. So the question is very clear. What did he promise the Separatists to get their support to save his political hide and quadruple his tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, no matter how much the Conservatives try to deny it, every single day in this country, we get closer to never using coal to generate electricity again. And now, Mr. Speaker, we're choosing to phase out home heating oil, which is dirtier, more expensive, and disproportionately relied on by lower-income Canadians. The Conservatives may try to make up all the stuff they like, but the reality is replacing home heating oil is good for Canadians when we put in heat pumps, and that's exactly what we're doing.
I have to admit, Pierre's kind of funny. Like, so many insults, like, in his questions. He just fires at Trudeau really, really hard. In each sentence, there's 3 or 4 insults almost every second word. It's funny. Here's something interesting, though. Trudeau's always talking about reduction of coal and eliminating coal. Coal can't be eliminated. I looked it up. In Nova Scotia, these are the stats. Take a peek. Over 50% of our energy is generated from coal. So, you can't eliminate it. Like I was saying, it heats up, it escalates. Poilievre sets Trudeau off. Trudeau freaks out. Here it is.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years, he hasn't eliminated coal-fired electricity. He hasn't eliminated oil-powered heating in homes, and his carbon tax will not allow him to meet his own GHG targets, according to his Environment Commissioner. Now, that is the reality, that his carbon tax is not worth the cost. And that's why all 10 premiers, Conservative, Liberal, and NDP are calling for him to take the tax off so Canadians will keep the heat on. Will he be fair to all Canadians, or will he sign on with the separatists to divide our country some more?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I have to admit I'm a little worried for the Leader of the Opposition. When he has to stoop to bringing up the separatist boogeyman to try and scare Canadians, he must be running out of material. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are afraid of climate change. They're afraid of the extreme weather events. They're afraid of the concerns we have about a brighter future. And what we are doing is fighting climate change every day while we build a stronger economy with greater careers, while we support Canadians every single day with the high cost of living. This is what we're delivering. He has no plan to fight climate change, no plan for the future of the economy, no plan for Canadians.
So I wouldn't lie. Well, I would, but I didn't. Trudeau did freak out. After all of those insults, the questions from Poilievre was too much for him to handle. Up next, it's Jagmeet Singh. I don't know what he's thinking. Right here, he must forget that he's in bed with Trudeau. He's acting like they're not a part of a coalition government. It's weird. Here, check.
South.
The Liberal and Conservative corporate coalition may strike again today. We put forward a plan to help Canadians with their home heating bill, to help Canadians tackle the climate crisis and make big oil and gas pay for it. Now, environmental organizations are on board, but climate delay Liberals and climate deny Conservatives will back the profits of big oil again. So how can the Prime Minister and the leader of the Conservative Party justify voting against this?
Hear, hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it was with confusion and consternation that I noted the way the NDP voted with the Conservatives against one of the most successful measures Canada has ever seen in the fight against climate change. Putting a price on pollution is exactly how we've managed to bend the curve on our emissions faster than other G7 countries over the past 2 years. How we are moving forward with global leadership on the fight against climate change. Seeing the NDP vote with the Conservatives against a price on pollution is something that has disappointed millions of progressives across this country.
Do you not find it peculiar to see those two arguing? Politics makes for strange bedfellows, I suppose. Poilievre's not going to let it go, and guess what? He's up next. He goes with Trudeau like 4 times in a row here.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Most tragic and heartbreaking to see these two squabbling in this way. The Prime Minister was so disappointed in the NDP leader's flip-flop on carbon tax for heat, but the good news for the Prime Minister is the NDP leader has flip-flopped on his flip-flop and now supports the Prime Minister's plan to quadruple the tax. This, with 2 million Canadians, a record-smashing number, going to a food bank. Will the Prime Minister create another carve-out on the carbon tax for farmers so that Canadians can afford to eat?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We know, Mr. Speaker, that farmers are always focused on being good stewards of the land, and we are working with them in investing, in supporting them in many different ways to ensure that we can continue to put good quality, affordable food on people's tables right across the country, and that's what we're going to continue to do, Mr. Speaker. Farmers and indeed Canadians from coast to coast to coast know that as we fight climate change, as we put more money in people's pockets every 3 months with hundreds of dollars with the pollution price return, we're going to continue to step up in building a strong economy for tomorrow, something the Conservatives simply don't understand.
So Poilievre's joke about Jagmeet and Trudeau scrapping, that was pretty funny. But he has points to make, and when Trudeau is talking, I'm not sure if he's trying to fool me or if he's trying to fool himself. He does it all the time. Poilievre's up again. Check this.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is quadrupling his carbon tax on the farmers who make the food, quadrupling the tax on the truckers who ship the food, therefore quadrupling the tax on all who buy the food. Good news is there is a common sense conservative bill that's passed through the House and in the Senate where the Prime Minister's senators are holding it up. Will the Prime Minister once again cave and allow another carve-out on the carbon tax for farmers? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Many people living in rural areas across the country, including many farmers, continue to be stuck heating their homes with home heating oil. It is dirtier, it is more expensive, and it is something that is expensive to replace. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we are stepping up with measures that are going to deliver heat pumps to families right across the country, the 1.2 million households across this country, in every part of this country, relying on home heating oil, so we can help them fight climate change and save money at the same time. That's our plan. The Conservatives have no plan.
I wonder if farmers do feel supported by Trudeau. If there was an election tomorrow, do you think that they would show Trudeau's support? I don't think so. Not many would. These days, it's tough. Anyways, it's going to be tough on Trudeau too. Poilievre is up again.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Our common sense plan is found in Bill C-234, which would give another carve-out to farmers on the carbon tax. And the Prime Minister has claimed that he won't cave again. He says there will be no more carve-outs. We're asking him to keep in mind there are 2 million people who have to go to the food bank every month because of his policies. Will he put his ego and pride aside and ask his Liberal senators to pass Common Sense Bill C-324 to axe the tax and create a carbon tax carve-out for our farmers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, farmers across this country know the costs of climate change. They know the costs of extreme weather events, whether it be floods or fires or more intense storms. Farmers are worried about their future, worried about their kids' future, worried about the country's future. That's why we put forward a plan that is reducing our emissions and growing our economy at the same time while putting more money in Canadians' pockets. The Conservatives have no plan to fight climate change, no plan for the future of the economy, no plan for future generations. We will continue to do what's necessary to support Canadians, including farmers, long into the future. That's it.
Right there's an example of what I'm talking about. Is he trying to fool me that he cares about farmers, or is he trying to fool himself that he cares about farmers? I don't really believe that he does, but maybe he thinks that he does? I don't know. Poilievre is up again, going at Trudeau.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister won't answer a simple question. It's about the common sense Conservative bill to carve out farming from the carbon tax. But I understand why he feels he's in a bind, because his Environment Minister said, as long as I am Environment Minister, there will be no more exceptions to carbon pricing. That implies that he would resign if there was another carve-out. Will the Prime Minister sacrifice his crazy carbon tax minister and support our common sense bill to take the tax off?
Mr. Speaker, I think we'll all be waiting for a long list of corrections and factual errors from the Leader of the official opposition if we go down this road. The fact of the matter, Mr. Speaker, for millions of Canadians who understand that climate change poses an existential threat to our country, to our well-being, to our economy, they need action. They expect a government with a plan. They expect a government to deliver on that plan, and that is exactly what we have been doing for 8 years. Meanwhile, the only plan the Conservatives put forward are cuts. Cuts to services, cuts to program, cuts to rebates for Canadians, and yes, cuts to the most successful measure to reduce climate change emissions that this country has ever seen. When is he going to come forward with a real plan?
Okay, I think Poilievre does have a plan. Say he didn't. Do you think that no plan is worse than a bad plan? I think a bad plan is worse than no plan. I don't know. Poilievre's up again.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It is crazy to quadruple the carbon tax on our farmers when 2 million people are going to a food bank every month. So now the Minister of the Environment has threatened to resign if there are new carbon tax carve-outs. We have a common sense Conservative bill that would carve out the carbon tax for farmers. All it needs is for the Prime Minister to give his senators permission to pass it. Will the Prime Minister please just cave at least one more time and allow a carve-out on the carbon tax for our farmers, yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I won't use the word crazy, but I will say it is deeply, deeply irresponsible for the Conservative Party of Canada continue to deny that taking action against climate change is important, to continue to deny that climate change is a real threat to Canadians and to our economy. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, we have put forward measures that both fight climate change and put more money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families, and we're going to continue to fight climate change because the cost of inaction against climate change is far more than the cost of action.
So if you were the Prime Minister and everything out there was so expensive, inflation so bad, the economy so bad, everything just so tough, would you be using the word irresponsible and throwing it at someone else as an insult? I wouldn't. Poilievre is back. I'm sure he's not going to let Trudeau off the hook.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Tax isn't working. He's missed every single target. He's on track to miss his 2030 targets, and Canada is ranked 58th out of 63 on climate action. Mr. Speaker, the question is about our farmers. There's a bill C-234, a common sense Conservative bill to carve out farmers from the carbon tax. All it needs is for the Prime Minister to give his senators permission to adopt this carve-out. Will the Prime Minister stand up to his Environment Minister and stand up for farmers and let Bill C-234 pass and allow this carve-out to go ahead?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I will admit, it doesn't happen often, but every now and then I am a little bit envious of the position that the Leader of the Opposition finds himself in, of being able to criticize on the one hand that we aren't doing enough to fight climate change, and then on the other hand say that we need to stop everything we're doing to fight climate change. Fortunately, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are smarter than he takes them for. Canadians know the only way to build a strong economy for the future is to fight climate change at the same time. That is exactly what we are doing, and until he puts forward a plan that is responsible and real on fighting climate change and growing the economy, Canadians will continue to dismiss him.
That's right.
Okay, confession time. I voted for Trudeau in 2015. Was it a mistake? Maybe. I don't know. It seemed like a good option at the time, but these last 4 years especially have been ridiculous. I can't imagine that Trudeau doesn't know that a lot of the responsibility lays on his shoulders. It's the Prime Minister. Trudeau hardly comes to Parliament anymore anyhow, but he chose the wrong day to show up. Guess who's back? Pierre-Poilievre, and he has another question full of insults for Trudeau.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This panicking Prime Minister is not worth the cost or the division after 8 years. He'd recently announced that he would pause his carbon tax on heat for some people in some places where he's plummeting the polls and his caucus is revolting. He claims this is not regional, but his own rural affairs minister said that if people on the prairies want the same pause, they should elect more Liberals. Can he confirm whether he endorses these comments or whether he condemns them?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Perhaps the Conservatives think that phasing out coal was divisive because some parts of the country had already phased out coal and it only targeted the parts of the country that still rely on coal to generate electricity. Mr. Speaker, we are united in our desire to fight climate change as Canadians. We are united in our desire to support Canadians who need it through into a better future. That's why banning and phasing out home heating oil by replacing them with heat pumps right across the country is an approach that will unite Canadians. The only division is amongst Conservatives who still think that climate change is fake.
That's right.
I don't want to be argumentative, but I've got this graph with these numbers on it that show that coal isn't being phased out. Not in Nova Scotia, at least. Not at all. I've said before that Trudeau freaks out a couple of times. Those are getting pretty close. They're coming up. One more piece, Poilievre asks, then Trudeau starts to lose it.
Stating falsehoods about our position will not distract from the original question. Here is the question. The Minister of Rural Development said that if people in the prairies wanted a pause on the carbon tax for home heat, they should elect more Liberals. Does the Prime Minister denounce these comments, or does he agree with them?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, tens of thousands of people across the prairies are getting the chance to replace their home heating oil with carbon, with thermopumps, with heat pumps, because we have put forward programs to help in that transition as we pause the price on pollution for people in the prairies who rely on home heating oil. Tens of thousands of them. We are there for people in the prairies who want to save thousands of dollars a year, who want to get heat pumps, who want to fight climate change. Why aren't the Conservatives there for those people?
Trudeau is starting to become unraveled. He's talking about free heat pumps again, unicorns, dragons, a bunch of things that don't exist. Poilievre is getting to him, and he's driving him to the edge. Trudeau's going to lose it here shortly.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We're there for all Canadians. But this is really troubling. We thought that perhaps it was a gaffe when his Liberal Rural Affairs Minister said that the prairies would have to elect more Liberals if they wanted a pause. And if this really is just a fair policy that applies evenly across the country, then why would you have to elect more of any particular party in your region to benefit from it? So I'll just give him one last chance. If he can't answer it, we'll assume that he agrees with her. Does he agree with his Rural Affairs Minister that if the prairies want to pause on the carbon tax pain, they have to elect more Liberals? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
No, Mr. Speaker, because people in the prairies who heat with home heating oil already are benefiting from a pause on the price of carbon, on the carbon price. That's because, Mr. Speaker, this pause that we put in applies right across the country. So the tens of thousands of Canadians in rural Canada, in the prairies, are going to be able to benefit from the transition to heat pumps. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to step up, including in doubling the rural top-up on the carbon price rebate. We will continue to deliver for Canadians right across the country, and we will continue to be there for all Canadians, including women.
Right when Trudeau is getting fired up and going to deliver a big speech, he gets cut off by the House Speaker Greg Fergus. I'm sure he didn't like that. He is going to take one more punch from Poilievre, and he's going to snap. Here it comes.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister only divides to distract. That's all he ever does when he gets into trouble. He divides people along every possible battle line. He did that with the carbon tax carve-out for only some in a region where his support is plummeting and his caucus is revolting. And for 10 days, he refused to condemn the comments of his own Liberal minister who said this policy was applying based on how people voted. And now he signs on with the separatists to divide Canadians again. Will he, instead of dividing Canadians, reverse the policies that are driving them to the food bank?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we see the Conservatives' approach to partisan politics and to personal attacks. The reality is, when we stood with the 80 to 90% of Canadians who chose to get vaccinated, they called us divisive. When we chose to stand with women across this country who want to control their own bodies, they called us divisive. When we stand with the 2 LGBTQI+ kids who are being discriminated against in schools across this country, they call us divisive, Mr. Speaker. I ask Canadians, who are dividing Canadians more than Conservatives with their attacks, with their choices, with their politics?
I told you he was gonna lose it, and he lost it. It's fun watching politicians lose control, and he just lost control. Up next, JAGMEET's back, and it doesn't get easier for Trudeau. JAGMEET forgets that they're bedfellows. They're in a coalition together. He goes at him about housing.
Burnaby South.
People are struggling to find a home they can afford. And this federal government has the power, the land, and the resources to end the housing crisis. On one side, we've got the corporate-controlled Conservatives that want to sell off our public land to their rich investor friends that helps no one. But on the other side, we've got Liberals who are openly admitting that their plan is to use public lands to build luxury homes. How can this Prime Minister justify using public lands to build homes that people can't afford?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that's simply not true. We know Canadians are worried about paying their rent, finding an apartment, or buying a home. That's why we're working on affordable housing and affordable housing affordability right across the country. It's why we put forward the Affordable Housing and Groceries Act, which helps build more affordable apartments by cutting the GST on construction. Housing advocates and developers have described this move as a game changer that will get more affordable housing built. It's why it's essential that all members work with us to move these important measures forward.
Someone must have slipped Trudeau a Xanax, because he recovered well. He calmed down after freaking out at Poilievre, took that JAGMEET question, his old coalition buddy, no problem. Bad news for Trudeau, Poilievre's back, and I think he's pushing buttons.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, with or without glasses, I will not lose $54 million on an app that doesn't work. Now, this is a Prime Minister whose government is now under RCMP investigation for giving out contracts to firms that did absolutely no work. Now senior members of the bureaucracy are blowing the whistle and saying his top officials lied about it before committee. Will the Prime Minister personally cooperate with the police in this latest criminal investigation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can't help but wondering how many millions of dollars Canadians would have lost if they had followed the Leader of the Opposition's advice and bought Bitcoin so they could opt out of inflation. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to serious matters, both the RCMP and CBSA's Professional Integrity Division are investigating. The CBSA has also launched an internal audit to look into contracting at the agency and has increased oversight processes when it comes to the contracting.
I figure that Poilievre must think that he's beaten Trudeau up so badly that it's just time to start making fun of him. All the rest of this is just clever insults when he's asking the questions, and he does it a few times.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the former director of CBSA, our principal border authority, said that he felt incredibly threatened, those were his words, by the former president of the organization. And senior bureaucracy, members of the Prime Minister's bureaucracy, are to have lied, according to this testimony, in order to cover up this $54 million scandal. The matter is now under Auditor General and RCMP investigation. Will the Prime Minister cooperate with the police, yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, obviously the reports coming out are extremely concerning, and I know that the respective authorities will be taking this extremely seriously. We expect our professional public servants to always conduct themselves with the utmost integrity, and I'm sure that will continue to happen.
By now, Poilievre is just making it look easy. Have mercy on Trudeau, or don't. It's funny to watch him insult him like that. Here's a little more.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, the entire government only takes direction from a guy who has 2 convictions for breaking the law, Mr. Speaker. And in this case, it's not just $54 million. There's $11 million given to a two-person IT firm to do absolutely nothing. The same firm has gotten $60 million from this Liberal government since 2017 alone. The entire matter is under criminal investigation. So for a third time, will the Prime Minister personally cooperate with the police, yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You can understand that I won't take overly seriously the accusations from an individual who was Minister of Elections when he was found to break elections law. Mr. Speaker, when we see matters of wrongdoing, we ensure that proper authorities are looking into it, and of course our government will always ensure full cooperation with investigating authorities.
Hear, hear.
I don't think Poilievre liked the cryptocurrency joke that Trudeau made earlier because he is coming back with so many insults that are a little meaner this time. It's so funny. He's not done yet.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Reporting of a top Liberal government official reveals that the billion-dollar green fund the Prime Minister is running is not worth the cost or the corruption. Some extracts from that recording. It was free money, sponsorship-level kind of giveaway. And I quote, since the Prime Minister learned of these allegations in March, he hasn't fired a single solitary person. This is a billion-dollar slush fund. Is he worried about firing the insiders because he doesn't want them to blow the whistle on this broader Liberal scandal?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, earlier this year, ISED was made aware of allegations of mismanagement at SDTC. The Auditor General has now decided to conduct an audit of SDTC, and our government has been working closely with them on this and welcome the decision. In addition, SDTC has agreed to enable a thorough third-party review of the allegations regarding HR management, and we're committed to ensuring organizations which receive federal funding adhere to the highest standards of governance.
What kind of a beating would you call this? I'd call it an arse whooping. Trudeau really is getting it handed to him. Poilievre is not taking his foot off the gas, pedal to the metal.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Is a billion-dollar taxpayer-funded slush fund that top officials now say amounts to a sponsorship scandal kind of corruption. It says they were giving away free money. This at a time when a record-smashing 2 million people are forced to food banks every month, when 9 out of 10 people can't afford homes. How could the Prime Minister have thought it appropriate to blow $1 billion when Canadians cannot afford to eat, heat, or house themselves?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to be perfectly clear. Any allegation of wrongdoing in any government department must be fully investigated. There are established processes for situations such as these, and this is precisely why the Auditor General has made the decision to conduct an audit. This is a serious situation, and we are taking it with the seriousness with which it requires. Unfortunately, the Conservatives, as usual, are looking for a way to score cheap partisan points. We are going to continue to govern responsibly.
Imagine being in charge and you blow $1 billion. You screw up another $54 million. Oh, there's so many scandals, it's ridiculous. Poilievre keeps going. There's more.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
There's nothing cheap about losing $1 billion, Mr. Speaker. That's exactly why he's not worth the cost. He sees no problem throwing away $54 million on an ArriveCan app that didn't work and we didn't need and is now under criminal investigation. And now, 6 months after he learned of corruption, cronyism, and mismanagement in this billion-dollar fund, he has kept his hand-picked cronies in the position. Mr. Speaker, if he really thinks it's serious that this billion-dollar fund had so much corruption, why won't he fire the people running it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is a country of rules and laws, and that's why we need to make sure that we are doing proper investigations and ensuring appropriate consequences for any people involved in wrongdoing. This is how a country of laws and rules functions. Unfortunately, Conservatives are still choosing to make cheap partisan points on very serious issues, and we're going to continue to take these issues seriously.
Here, here.
When you're making a video like this, you see the clips many times. You become familiar with the content. By now, I'm starting to feel a little sorry for Trudeau. I think he is delusional. But also, I'm frustrated because there's so many questions that need to be answered and they're not being answered. Poilievre keeps going.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The United Kingdom's Foreign Office has given travel advice to its citizens, which reads the following. The risk of terrorist attacks happening in Canada is very likely. End quote. Does the Prime Minister agree with the UK Foreign Office's assessment? And what is he doing to protect Canadians from such an attack?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has a robust and sophisticated process around determining levels of threats to Canadians. We elevated the level of threat back in 2012 to medium, and it stays there right now. We are continuing to make sure we're doing everything we possibly can to keep Canadians safe. We understand these are trying times around the world right now, but the best thing we can do as Canadians is stay true to our values, be respectful of one another, feel each other's pain, and be there to support through very difficult times of a rise in hatred, including Islamophobia and anti-Semitism.
We're getting to the end of it now, but it's not looking good. These questions are starting to get scary. Those questions about terrorism, I wonder if there's any more of those.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Terrorists are not interested in feeling other people's pain. They're interested in causing other people pain. And the UK Foreign Office has said, and I quote, the risk of terrorist attacks happening in Canada is very likely, end quote. Yet the Canadian government rates that risk at medium. Why the difference?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, obviously I can't speak how other countries make their determinations on travel advisories, but I can say that the work is done daily in Canada to assess the threat level to Canadians and what can be communicated to keep them safe. We elevated the threat level to medium in 2014, Mr. Speaker, and it has remained at that level since. But every single day, we reevaluate and ensure that we are doing everything we can, privately and publicly, to keep Canadians safe.
Thank you.
All right, gang, you've done great. This has been a hard beating to watch. There's only one question left, but here's something. If Trudeau's the only thing that's keeping us safe from terrorism in Canada, I'm nervous about terrorism in Canada. This is the last question, and then we'll wrap up. One more. It's probably about terrorism. Let's hear what he has to ask.
Leader of the Opposition.
And yet, if you simply read the UK Foreign Department's assessment of Canada, and I quote, the risk of terrorist attacks happening in Canada is very likely, end quote, then there is a very serious risk, Mr. Speaker. Why did Canadians have to learn from a foreign government about an increasing threat of terrorism in Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker. Once again, I can't speak to how the UK makes its determinations, but I certainly can say that in Canada, we have top security agencies and officials who work daily to reassess the threat levels to Canadians. They are working every single day to keep Canadians safe, and will continue to keep Canadians informed on the best ways to keep safe, Mr. Speaker.
So that brings our video to a close. It's been a lot of fun. That was quite a beating to watch. So many great questions, not a lot of great answers. Trudeau flipped out there a couple of times. He really lost it once. It was pretty fun to watch. Like and subscribe. We're having fun with Canadian politics right here. My name's Aaron. This is Question Period Canada. Catch you next time.